So unlike a lot of the reviews that I do, I'm sitting in a car filming this on an iPhone 11 Pro. You can see Hallie in the background right there. There's Hallie. We're in the Buick Enclave. We're about to go to the mall. Why are we going to the mall?
Because mommy's wrapping presents.
Yes, we have to get out of the house. But the weather in Atlanta is supposed to be like this pretty much for the next 48 hours, so that doesn't make for good filming. So we're going to kind of use the Enclave as it is meant to be used, as a suburban mall crawler, and we'll see how it goes. What's going on, YouTube? Jax here, and I apologize for what is a little bit lower tech review than normal. I'm sitting here in the 2020 Buick Enclave, and pretty much everything that I need to film has completely fallen apart, like totally. It's currently hovering, just above freezing. It's raining. And last night we started having insane wind, just random horrible wind. And not the kind of wind that I normally complain about where I'm like, oh, it's windy and my microphone's messed up. No, like wind that like blows over things. So as you can imagine, it's made filming this review rather difficult. It's been this way for about 48 hours and the car has to go back tomorrow. So that being considered, I'm doing the best I can. All my fancy stuff is at home. And I'm shooting the majority of this review on an iPhone 11 Pro Max, so I guess we're gonna find out how well the iPhone does. Yeah, so how'd the Buick Enclave handle that mall crawling adventure? Pretty well, actually. This is literally the perfect car for driving the family around to the mall. The girls had tons of space in it. Hallie's about 5 feet tall. I know that's pretty crazy because she's not even 10 yet, but she's almost 5 feet tall and she had more than enough room in the back. Legroom is very generous. She easily could have moved her seat up. So if you have small children that hover in that 5 foot or below range, you're gonna have tons of space in the second row and in the third row as well, because you can always slide the seat forward. Now, if you don't know, the Enclave comes with a 3.6 liter V6 that makes over 300 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. It's a very responsive engine. It's very quick. The Enclave has no trouble getting up to speed. It's got a 9-speed automatic transmission, and it's going to hover in the low 20s in terms of real-world miles per gallon, which is about what I've been getting in day-to-day sort of suburban city driving. Now, it has an auto start-stop system, which you know how I feel about those, and like many of them, it's a little lazy to get going again. It does help to mitigate the gas mileage penalty for driving what is a very large car, and in fact, that's one of the Enclave's biggest strengths, is that it is a very large car, and it has a ton of interior space. One of the best parts of this car is the way it rides. The Enclave has what Buick calls their quiet tuning technology, which is a combination of some fancy suspension trickery combined with some active noise cancellation, combined with some sound deadening materials, and it works. The Enclave is extremely comfortable. Now, you wouldn't confuse it with a car with a sporty ride, but for a car with a comfortable ride, there's a lot less body motion than you would expect. It's got a very cush sort of initial impact, and then it regains composure really well. I took it on my terrible road handling loop, and the Enclave performed pretty admirably. It soaked up all of the terrible road imperfections, but it didn't toss me around with unnecessary body motions. It's a very impressive and smoothly riding SUV. Now, this Enclave comes with sort of Buick's standard set of features. This is a 2020 ST, so it's sort of a lower spec model with some upper spec items, I guess, if that makes sense. So you have your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, your usual Bluetooth. You have GM's awesome 4G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot, which I really enjoy. That's nice for the girls. You also have heated seats and an in-vehicle air ionizer, which purifies the air. So let me test that out real quick. Yeah, that's some purified air right there. I feel good. I feel great. All those years of smoking, I'm kidding, I've never smoked ever. But if I did, the air ionizer would cure that. No, that's not true. This opinion is not endorsed by Buick or the FDA or any doctor at all, or any mom or any person with a brain. Now, obviously, usable space is sort of the party trick of this car. You can see that the third row back here has plenty of space. I'm actually sitting in the second row right now, and you can see my knees. Let me see if I can get a view here. Have more than enough space behind the front passenger seat, which is pretty far back. This car can easily carry 6 people in ideal comfort, to be honest with you. There's an absolutely ridiculous amount of space in the Enclave, which makes it ideal for growing families or people that just like to drive a lot of people around. The Enclave also comes equipped with a lot of standard features, which is pretty nice. However, in this segment, the competition is getting pretty intense, and you've got a lot of challengers from sort of established players like Honda and Toyota. You got the new Toyota Highlander that just came out. You got the Honda Pilot and the Honda Passport, but then you also have the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade. And I had a Telluride, and it is a frankly incredible vehicle. And the main problem here is that the Buick comes very well equipped, but for a as-tested price of nearly $50,000, it's not as well equipped as a comparably priced Kia Telluride. It has all the features that you would expect in a sort of base model SUV. It has blind spot monitoring, it has a rear view camera, it has cross traffic alert, but it doesn't have forward brake assist and automatic cruise control and things like that you find in the higher trim models, which you have to spend quite a bit of money to get to. And on top of that, even though the Enclave is quite large, so is the Telluride and the Hyundai Palisade. So that presents a bit of a value problem for the Buick Enclave when you compare it to some of the newer challengers in its market segment. So what are the primary pros of the Buick Enclave? Well, first of all, I think it looks really nice. I think the styling is sort of handsome and understated. It's got presence. It's smooth without being kind of bulbous and amorphous in its shape. I think the overall look of the Enclave is pretty successful. The chrome trim and the accents are tasteful and sort of restrained, and I really like the way it looks overall inside and outside. Also, the materials in the interior are for the most part class competitive, if not slightly better than some other cars in this price range in this class. However, the bar is quickly being raised by people like Kia and Hyundai. And so in order to remain competitive, the Enclave is going to have to evolve in the next couple years or get an interior refresh of some kind. But the materials are nice, and I think the design overall looks pretty upscale and premium. As I said before, the ride is pretty exceptional, to be honest with you. The quiet tuning and the smoothness of the suspension are very evident. It is a very comfortable car, especially when you're sitting in traffic. The seats are a little flat, but they are very comfortable and have unbelievable lumbar support, which I know might not matter to a lot of you, but it matters to me because I have scoliosis, and you know how I feel about good seats. And so the seats are good, and they do provide a lot of lower back support. Also, the engine is pretty powerful, as I mentioned. It's a little coarse, it's a little buzzy, but it's pretty powerful, and it gets the car moving. And so in traffic, the Enclave feels relatively quick and responsive. Likewise, part of the driving experience, the transmission is buttery smooth, which is what you would expect from a Buick. The steering is accurate, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. And the brake pedal is pretty firm. It's a little spongy, but it's firm, and it stops the Enclave very quickly and with authority, which is what you want when you're driving a large SUV. Also, the infotainment system is pretty great. It's a little laggy, which, as I've said before, is a problem that many of the automakers face, but it has a lot of features. It has a lot of connectivity. It's got the 4G Wi-Fi, so that's really nice. I think the infotainment overall is a win. Now, what about some Enclave cons as I sit here protected in my Enclave, which is acting as an enclave from the terrible weather? See what I did there? Please don't unsubscribe. First of all, the steering is a bit numb, which you would probably say, but that makes sense because it's a giant 3-row family SUV. What are you expecting it to be, like a Mazda? No, I'm not actually, but it's numb and heavy, which that doesn't make sense to me. It's not like the Telluride I had like the most amazing steering in the world, but it felt correct for the car. It was sort of dead and kind of lightweight. This is sort of artificially heavy, which I think is a bit odd considering this car's transmission. Also, the relationship between the throttle and the 9-speed automatic transmission is a little strange. At low speeds, it causes the transmission to do a bit of hunting, so the transmission never seems to know what gear to be in. Now, once you get up to speed or you summon more power from the engine, the transmission shifts extremely smoothly and pretty quickly. But at lower speeds, when your throttle input might vary depending on traffic, the transmission can hunt a little bit. So nothing major, not a big deal, but it's worth noting. It's not quite as smooth as some other offerings in the segment. Also, the transmission lever itself is kind of funny. I don't know why we're in this weird mode in the car industry of weird transmissions that take up the same amount of space as an old school lever did. Just like give us buttons or something now, man. Like you could use that space. Like we don't need a Xbox controller, or it looks like one of those like Oculus VR things. Like just put some buttons there and save the space for like another cup holder or a wireless charger, you know, like this car doesn't have. Like, you know, a wireless charging pad. That'd be nice. And then there's sort of the elephant in the room. Probably the biggest problem with the Enclave overall is the lack of features for the price. This is a nearly $50,000 SUV. And for that amount of money, the Kia Telluride, I know I keep mentioning it, but the Kia Telluride has taken the market by storm for a really good reason. The materials in the Telluride are phenomenal, and the amount of options and extras you get for its nearly $50,000 price is extensive. It blows my mind how much they pack into that car. So the other automakers are going to have to adjust somehow. It's just the way progress works. You've got to offer more for this price. The Enclave is a beautifully finished car, and it drives very well and it rides fantastic, but it's not offering enough for the price. And so it's very hard to justify buying an Enclave for nearly $50,000 when $45,000 can get you as much or more in a comparably priced Kia or Hyundai. Or to be honest with you, even a Honda or Toyota. The premium segment is sort of vanishing, and now it's just being taken over by high-spec trim levels from mainstream manufacturers, which is great for consumers, but it's not so great for some brands that occupied that sort of mid-level air. Buick would be one, Lexus would be another. They have to offer something more than just a badge. So overall, what do we think of the Buick Enclave? This is a very stylish and well-appointed SUV, and it rides extremely well, and it's got a ton of useful space. And I imagine that there's a lot of families that would be very pleased by this car. However, that being said, based on where the market is right now and what's available out there, I think you owe it to yourself to check out some of the other offerings from Honda, Toyota, and especially Kia and Hyundai in this segment. Before you drop over $40,000 on a large 3-row SUV, check out all of your options and see which one works best for you. For some people, the Enclave might work best. It's extremely comfortable, it's got some pretty compelling technology, and it looks really nice, and it's got a ton of space. That might be for you, but for other people, you might place a little bit more of a priority on value. For me, the winner in this segment is and will remain the Kia Telluride until something better comes along. I'm hoping to get behind the wheel of the new Toyota Highlander in the near future, so we'll see how that stacks up. Not that you particularly care, but the weather is uniformly horrible outside. This is by far the absolute worst I've ever had when trying to film a review. It's a little frustrating and it kind of stinks, but the show must go on.